Buenos días, hoy os traemos un programa muy especial ya que entrevistaremos a Michael Dean, vicepresidente de ventas de EMEA, de la cadena australiana de gimnasios F45. Así que no os vayáis porque comenzamos. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
I'm great, Blanca. Thank you very much for taking the time and interviewing me today. It's great.
Thank you. Okay, so we would like to know, when did you join F45 for developing and expanding UK and European market, and what seduced you from this model of F45?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been with the brand now for about 4.5 years. However, I was actually exposed to F45 probably a few years before that. I was on holiday in Australia, and I was looking for somewhere to train. I ended up in an F45 studio and fell in love with the brand then. Fast forward a few years later, I ended up in one of the first franchise showcases that Luke Armstrong was running here in London. And off the back of that, I left with not a franchise agreement, but actually an offer of employment. So I ended up actually taking a job off that. And yeah, in terms of the role, I mean, I think I've always had a passion for health and fitness and training. And, I've played sport for the majority of my life. And my role from a work perspective had always been in sales, but I've never really managed to marry the two up. But fortunately for me, I found something that does that for me. And it's been a great few years, I can say that.
What were the initial plans for this market, and have these goals been achieved? Did you find difficulties in reaching the initially planned objectives?
Yeah, I think with F45, there's always relatively aggressive targets. After the success that we had in Australia, and still do have, we've got about 650 sites over there. We probably did about 400 in 4 years. So with that such exponential growth at the start, we go into every market incredibly optimistic and relatively aggressive with our targets. I think for the UK and Europe, we've done a phenomenal job. The UK and Europe tends to lag a little bit behind the Australian and American fitness market. But here in the UK, we've got close to 70 studios open and operational. We've sold about 100. And we're now looking to take this model and then replicate into the rest of Europe, which we already have started to do. Spain, for example, we're probably going to have about 10 studios there by Q1 next year. But yeah, it's about really taking this and replicating it across Europe now.
In how many European countries is the franchise established? Is there anyone still to start working with F45?
Yeah, so we're in about 20 European countries off the top of my head. Now, some of those will be single units, some will be multi. We've got a bit of a broad reach, but certainly I think, if you were to ask that question, where would you like to be? It would be in every country in the world if possible. So yeah, there's certainly a lot more to do. And yeah, a lot more expansion on the horizon.
Do you find many differences between them? Which is the country more open to F45 model?
Yeah, I mean, look, the nice thing about F45 is it's very translatable. If you look at the global market, we're in about 72 countries, and we're in every kind of socio-economic market from, India to China to the UK and the US and basically everything in between. So the model translates very well. In terms of Europe, particularly, obviously the UK, which was ex-Europe, we won't go into that. We've done phenomenally well because we've actually got a base here. We've got an office here which services this market. Spain, as I mentioned, the fitness market there is incredibly strong, and we've started to see real traction there. But there are obviously nuances as we go into different markets. Language barriers, for example, and different pieces to take into account. I think For us, there's a few obvious markets that we're yet to really get into, but that's not necessarily because of any difficulty. I think it's just because of the strategy that we're going to apply. And certainly moving forward, I think that we're going to be looking to take on larger scale operators to help us go into those markets and really develop them at a considerable rate. But yeah, going back to the initial point, that anywhere is an opportunity for us.
Okay, and what have been the main challenges for F45 in its international expansion plan?
Yeah, I think there's a few different nuances as you go into markets. In Europe, often property is actually one of our biggest blockers. Particularly in the older European cities, the buildings weren't really traditionally built for gyms. So that's obviously a bit of a blocker for us. However, that is something that we're finding easier as the model gets more coverage and becomes more well known. If you roll back to the clock, 4.5 years ago when I joined and when we were looking to get into London, not only was finding those sites hard, but also was convincing those landlords of what F45 was. And, there's this crazy gym concept coming from Australia, and, they were a little bit confused about it. But now we're at a point, particularly here in London, where landlords are reaching out to us and saying, I've got an opportunity here. I can see you've done very well in the market. Would you like to come and take a look at it? So property is obviously a blocker. Finding the right franchisees for us is critical as well. We want to make sure that whoever we partner with has got the ability to replicate and represent the brand to the highest level of standard. Unfortunately, particularly in Europe, actually, we have some very strong franchisees. But yeah, finding those partners who have the same ambitions that we do in terms of growth is often a bit of a challenge. But certainly something that we're going to continue to do over the next 12 months.
Good. And what is the current situation of the company?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different interesting developments of late. I think, from a global perspective, over the last couple of years, it's been tough, certainly for the fitness industry, with all of the issues that we've had with COVID. And I won't labor the point too much because we all know them, unfortunately, too well. But we are certainly coming out of that period. And if you start to look at our network as a whole, we're really starting to see that hangover of COVID, if you will, start to disappear. From a studio perspective, over the last 3 months, I can tell you that our average AUV, which is essentially, the revenue each studio is producing, has gradually gone up over the last 3 months. Actually, in some cases, not that gradually. I would imagine that coming into December, historically and naturally, there'll be a bit of a dip off. However, we would love and really hope and expect to see that growth for the studio level continue into the new year. In terms of a company perspective and a broader level, and this has just relatively recently been made public knowledge on our earnings call, we've completed a master agreement for Europe. So the largest franchisee and group, which is Club Sports Group in the US, has taken on a master agreement to help develop the European market. And for us, this is, it's music to our ears. Yeah. I think, we've done a heck of a lot over here in Europe, but with a relatively small team, which is understandable. There's a huge focus on the US and the Australian markets, just given their size and coverage. Whereas now what this investment from Club Sports allows us to do is really focus on Europe, come up with European specific strategies, really focus on entering markets with things like, much more translation, which we do offer, but probably can do better on. So yeah, it's an exciting time. It adds investment for us. It adds headcount as well, more importantly, and real focus to this market, which I think, has often kind of made its way just kind of step by step, whereas now it's going to be a bit of petrol on the fire to really get us going in 2023.
Okay. And how do you expect to end the year at a European and global level?
End of the year, so I'm just checking, on the 8th of December, so we've only got a couple of weeks left. I think we're probably coming to the closure part of the year for sure. I think looking into 2023 though, we're incredibly excited, as I say, with the agreement that we've just struck with Club Sports Group. We've got that investment, we've got that power behind us, and more importantly, support for franchisees. The last couple of years, as I mentioned, for everyone in basically every industry have been tough, but certainly for the fitness industry. So what that investment does is allows us to support our franchisees moving forward as well, and hopefully continue that revenue growth moving forward. But yeah, for the end of the year, I'd say we've only got a few weeks left, so I can't imagine there's going to be dramatic changes. At least I hope so.
And what are the objectives for 2023 internationally?
Yeah, certainly. I think, there's also what comes with the master agreement is not necessarily a change in strategy, but a focus in strategy. Historically, we have been relatively open to developing the market unit by unit. And that's certainly something that worked well here in the UK, but also because of the team that we had here, that growth was almost exponential because we had that focus here. I think what we would quite like to do is go into these European market with larger scale developers, people that want to commit to us. They see the success that we've had in other markets globally, and not just do 1 or 2 units in a city, but say, look, I'll take over the rights for Berlin and I'll do 10 studios in Berlin over the next 24 months. And those are the kind of operators that we're looking to partner with. Of course, there's less of them around, and it will be probably a bit of a longer battle, but it's certainly the way in which we see the brand being most effective, launching multiple sites in multiple cities. And again, the support from the CSG group is something that we're going to look to help us and lift us in that into 2023.
Okay, and focusing a little more on our country, Spain.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I mentioned, Spain is actually a market for us external to the UK in Europe, which is doing fantastically well. I think, the health and fitness culture in Spain is certainly high and above most European markets. And we should have, I'm just trying to think, I would probably say close to 10 locations in Spain by the end of the Q1 of next year. We launched probably 4 years ago in Ibiza, which isn't obviously the mainland Spain, but it was an incredibly successful site. We've also got one in Mallorca, in Palma. We're about to open a second in Palma. We've got sites in Madrid and other areas of central Spain, but there's certainly a lot of key markets that we are yet to open. The most obvious one for me is Barcelona, and we do have a current franchisee who's got other studios in Spain looking at a site in Barcelona. But yeah, I think there's a lot of runway in Spain. And we would love to see 100 studios in Spain over the fullness of time. But as I say, I think it's a market that will continue to expand and hopefully at a decent rate.
Okay, now to finish, we would like you to send a message to the Spanish market, our followers in Gym Factory.
Well, look, first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to watch this. I apologize if I've been speaking too quickly. It's a problem of mine. But look, for any of you that haven't actually been in and trialed an F45, as I said, there's plenty of sites out there in Spain to get into. I'd hope and implore you all to get in. If one of you would love to organize that, by all means, email me myself directly. I can help sort that out for you, not a problem at all. If you'd like to discuss the potential of opening a franchise, of course, I'd absolutely love that as well. Again, you can reach out to myself. But please, if you've got any questions anytime, you will hopefully have my details. And yeah, look forward to seeing anything come through, and enjoy the workouts if you do get in.
Great. So we would like to thank you for the time you have dedicated to Gym Factory, getting to know the F45 chain a little more closely, and thank you very much. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. And yeah, enjoy the end of your year as well.
Y hasta aquí el programa de hoy. No olvidéis suscribiros a nuestro canal. ¡Salud!